are you? No, for real. How you holding up in this here world?
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, it is a non-zero chance that at some point someone's going to say, "Oh, that's how he was radicalized."
Oh, got
Um,
it. Got it.
Honestly, it's probably best for me to be very careful about how I speak about things for a
Okay.
while, not because of fear of the government, but just fear of being even more ostracized than I am by people who spend most of their time thinking, "Yeah, this will all take care of itself," and
Mm,
that's how they engage with the world.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think there are periods of time where people have to do that, and that's fine. Yeah. So it's a weird time, obviously, but
Incredibly.
it's also like really trying to figure out where my line is and what I'm willing to do to protect, if I'm being quite honest, my status quo,
Mm,
while also making the status quo for others better. Like, that's not the right way to phrase it, but
yeah. No,
I
I think
guess
that's a
the
very
way I've always
honest
thought about it is like
perspective.
I'm in a position of privilege and I don't want my privilege taken away, but I want my privilege given to other people.
Mm.
Like, I want everybody to have this level of privilege.
Oh, yeah, that's so hard. I believe that that is the
So,
cake and eating it too. Yeah. That's the
why
impossible
not?
slice. Yeah.
What are you spending your time with today these days?
Mostly with the Sensemakers Club. I feel like there's like so much that I want to do with that space, and I am just one person. So I've been
Mm-hmm.
working a lot on delegation, um, and like more than just do this task, but actually like delegation of energy and spirit, like enabling somebody to really want to take something on and figure it
Mm-hmm.
out and make sense of it, as opposed to like just doing what I'm telling them to do. And I think that's been a really interesting challenge for me to dig into through creating this thing, because it's too big to do as one person. So it's kind of like this
Right.
intricate house of cards of having a space where people want to contribute to the thing because they want the thing to exist. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it feels like a big system that I'm kind of like tinkering with and figuring out over time. And yeah, it fills most of my time, honestly. I'm
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah. Oh yeah. I would say at this point, for the last 9 months, it's been at least 75% of my time, my
Mm-hmm.
work time. Yeah.
And how is the process of delegating going?
Really well. I feel like I don't know what I did to be so lucky to get like the right list of people, but like I I got all of the people that are involved came through my mailing list. So all of them were subscribers to the mailing list or on social media, and like went through a form for like a Google form. And they just all ended up being so amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
just thoughtful, smart, capable people. And all of them have their own specialties, which is also one of the things that I think is sort of like I don't know, a thing I didn't think about when building it was that because we have like 20 groups that are within the Sensemakers Club, and each one has a different focus. Because of that, we have all of these deep specialties like already built out. So like today I was having a meeting with someone who's trying to figure out our mirth and merriment strategy. Like how are we going to gel as a community, and like what are we doing in terms of like practices and routines and celebrations and that kind of thing. And we were talking about wanting to do some research, and we were like, oh, we have our Making Sense of Research group. We should ask them what should we do. And so yeah, there's just been so many examples where the thing that I built to serve customers has actually ended up serving the community and me as a
Mm-hmm.
business owner. So it's been really cool. I mean, delegation is hard. You have to like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, not in like a brag kind of way, more in like a it's an affliction kind
Yeah.
of way. And so that's definitely something that I've worked on letting go of. Um, and the thing I've noticed is that it's not about me letting go of quality. It's me letting go of dictating the direction. And I think that
Right.
that's been a really good lesson for me, because I always thought about it as being, oh, if I manage people and I don't want to micromanage them and I don't want to put my perfectionism on them, that it's potentially like a loss of quality. And that hasn't been my experience at all. It's just that the person will do something different than what I expected. So
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a, usually it's more of a surprise than, oh no, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been good.
So I apologize for asking this closed question. Um, Bad researcher. Um, how do you find the interaction between you and the people who are showing up for that, being surprised, what for you to be surprised about what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
implies to me that you have given up some control over things.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
I'm
it
wondering
in some cases.
on the other end of the spectrum, or the other side of the whatever metaphor, um, that how people are showing up, of feeling like they're ready and willing to take control of that,
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of related to that, like the extent to which you're being very explicit
Mm-hmm.
with either people one-on-one or as a group, and saying, here's what needs to happen for this to grow,
Yeah.
you know, what those conversations look like.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different with everyone. One of the things I'm trying to figure out is like the motivation that each person that I work with, especially people that I work one on one with that take on like initiative work, like what are they
Mm-hmm.
motivated by? And I'm finding that in a lot of cases, the motivation is to create work that is their own. And so within that structure, like the best thing for me to do as a manager is to step back and let them own as much of that as possible and be as hands off as possible. Um,
Yeah.
there's other people, like I'm working with another person right now that is very young in their career, and like they want to be super hands on. Like this person wants me to edit their Google documents. They want me to like leave comments on things. They want me to be very directive. And I'm happy to do that because I know that their motivation is getting the experience of working with somebody like me, like of
Mm-hmm.
having the exposure to what I'm doing and to learn from me. And so that's a different kind of motivation to manage towards. So yeah, I feel like it depends on like, yeah, who the person is and like what they're looking for. But I do find myself having very explicit conversations about that, especially early
Mm-hmm.
on. Um, and then the other part of it is just like the expression of gratitude, which is not only relegated to those that give me volunteer service, but also those that I pay. I feel like it's imperative that you figure out how people like to be thanked and how
Mm-hmm.
they expect to be, um, how they expect gratitude to be expressed. Um, and then, yeah, fit that authentically into how you are doing that thing. I feel like I'm a heavy gratitude person. I like to tell people if they're making a difference. I don't want them to ever wonder. Um, but some people want, like I had one person that I've created content with that said once to me that when I say express compliments about them, they don't believe me, that it's not like an authentic enough translation, not just from me, but for anybody. And that
Mm-hmm.
instead, the things that they like is like seeing customer feedback from the thing that we made. Like that's proof. Like my opinion, like you work with me, you have to say that, you have to believe in
Mm-hmm.
me. Like versus like when I get a really great comment on social media about something that we made, I'm very quick to be like, hey, email. Did you see this? So that I know that that matters to that person. So yeah, I feel like that. I don't know. I've never managed this many people before, so it's a lot to kind of figure out. But I do have a Notion database about them all. So
Right. How many people are you at right now?
we have 135 members, and there are
Mm-hmm.
currently 43 discussion leaders that are all on a volunteer basis. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a big.
I can see why that is taking up a lot of your time.
Yeah, but I mean, in the delegation side, one of the main delegation projects I've had over last quarter was splitting up my operational responsibilities and getting discussion leaders to step into leadership roles to manage aspects of the business. So we have one person who's stepped forward to manage marketing and communications, somebody else who's stepped forward about leadership, and then another one who stepped forward about mirth and merriment. And then I'm still managing kind of the educational and events stuff myself, as well as the overall operational strategy. So hopefully that's something that I can eventually piece out to other folks. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now.
Where are you at sort of operationally about like building and maintaining or growing? Like where's that energy going right now?
I would
Or is
definitely
it
say
everywhere?
we're growing right now. We're trying to grow to a point of being self-sustainable. And that right now, it's been the experience of like kind of understanding a membership business is brand new to me, just from like a mental model standpoint, and figuring
Mm-hmm.
out like the right churn rate to plan for and how to think about different pricing levels, how to think about integrating the scholarshiping process and different discount levels that we do for different, events and other things. So all of that kind of combined puts into like all of the operational complexities of like, yeah, it's like a big matrix of like that stuff against all this stuff. And what comes out is right now we need to grow, but there's also a limit on the growth. So one of the
Right.
things that I've definitely identified is that like the small group nature of the discussions is what people like. It's what makes them feel included and welcome and like valued, is like hearing their actual voice in the conversation. So there is a point, if the maths, that there will be a time where we have enough members that the average discussion attendance is high enough that it feels like it's no longer a small group discussion. We would have to grow about 75% to get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel fairly good about kind of continuing down that path for a little while longer before deciding what that limiter means. I'm kind of hopeful that I have that problem to solve at some point.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But for now, I'm sort of like riding the roller coaster of like things go up and then they come down a little bit and then they go up and then they come down a little bit. And the number one thing that's been interesting is understanding why people don't engage with the product, right? Because there's like, with a membership product, there's an aspirational part and then there's like an actually practical usage part.
Mm-hmm.
And you can nail practical usage, but the aspirational user doesn't go away. And so, yeah, can you convert more aspirational users into actual users so that you don't have their eventual churn? That's sort of the big question right now. So we're putting a lot of resources towards that.
With splitting it up, maybe it's not the right term, but splitting up a lot of these duties across these discussion leaders, is it still primarily on you to, I'm having trouble with words this week and also the last couple decades, to bring all that together and tell a cohesive story that everybody can understand, or how is that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm definitely still the chief sense maker that's sort of bringing it
Yeah.
all together. But what I've tried to do is allocate parts of my calendar every week to spending time with those folks so that everything that they're doing is something that's easy for me to be reported out to at the very least, but also actively involved in, if at the very most. So my calendar is a series of one-on-ones with those folks,
Mm-hmm.
and then the meetings that I myself want to attend or host myself. And yeah, it definitely feels like a workplace these days, which is cool. It was for a while. It was just me and Kevin. Kevin is my Kevin Shearer is my producer, so he is like the operational backbone of the organization. He's also the paid employee around here, so he
Mm-hmm.
does a lot of the like operational labor to get everything working. Like we've so far run over 200 events, so every one of those has a
Wow.
Google invite with calendaring permissions
Right.
and all the things that come along with that. So he does all of that, as well as managing all of our social media channels and making sure that I do all the creation of social media content, but he does the like execution of making sure it gets there when it's supposed to. So I don't have to think about it in real time. So yeah, it's been really Kevin was the first like person that I hired on for the club, and he's really helped me to build processes as opposed to like having everything be in my head, which has been really good for me, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And takes a lot of the load off when you're trying to delegate. It's
Yeah.
just, hey, look at this document. It has
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
And if it's missing something, please add it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he comes from a QA background. So that was like one of the things that set him apart when I was hiring for that role, is like somebody like me who's creating as much content as I am and as many user flows as I am. Even if I use templates that I call over for quality and everything else, mistakes get made. URLs are, bad, or buttons don't work and things like that. So he does a really nice job of like making sure that everything is buttoned up and not limited by my stress, which is nice.
Yeah. So again, maybe not the right way to phrase it, but I feel like for many years you've been independent, doing your own thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And prior to starting this effort,
Mm-hmm.
were you more on your own independent, or?
Yeah, my trajectory was I was in house with Etsy as like a little island in the middle of my independence. So I left agency life back in 2014, and I was just fully independent at that point. And then
Yeah.
I went into Etsy, and I spent almost 5 years there. And I came out during the pandemic, and I bet myself that I could exist on writing alone for 1 year. And that was my big experiment. And I gave myself the goal of hitting my salary level the first year I was an information architect, which was a very low number. And so I doubled it. I was like, hey, I can do this. So then I was like, I'm going to do it for a second year. So we just signed up for year 5. We hit year 4 as a milestone in October of last year. And that level of independence is a bit different because in this entire time since I left Etsy, I no longer practice information architecture for other people. So the last time I was independent and taking freelance gigs as an information architect, doing consulting
Right.
work on strategic information architectures. Now I am fully independent of clients. I only serve directly to customers. So I went from being B2B to being B2C. And that started with books. And then I went into e-courses. And then e-courses was what enabled me to start the idea of the community. It was bringing the people that had bought those e-courses together around monthly events that I was hosting, and then having those people be like, it's so cool that we do this. But also, wouldn't it be cool if we did this more? And I was like, you should see my calendar. That is not possible. But then at some point, it seemed like, wait, what if a bunch of people did what I did? Like, I just host one a month, and that's reasonable. And so that's where things were born. And now I'm kind of trying to get, in terms of my independence, I'm trying to get the club to be self-sustaining so that I can draw some level of income from it that will then enable me to go back to doing what I love, which is writing books. So I think my next book might be about community, but we don't know. We'll never know for sure until we
Not
know.
until we know.
Until
Yeah.
we know. Yeah. I thought that my second book I had a completely different idea for. There's like a manuscript and everything. So you never know. I have lots of work that's unpublished.
Yeah. Big list. I've got this whole probably 9-page document of writing ideas, and some of them are done.
Yeah. I
Some
call
of
mine the back
them,
burner. And
yeah.
I banish things to the back burner sometimes. Like I get little ideas, little glimmery objects, and I let them be on my list for a little while. And if they're on my list for too long and they don't get any action, they get
Back burner.
banished to the back burner. The
Yeah.
back burner is a tag in Notion. That's what the back burner is.
Yeah.
But it works. It takes
Yeah.
it out of my view. It's filtered away. And then if ever I feel bored and I'm like, I feel like I want to do something new, I want to like put creative juice towards something, I just go there and it's like walking into like a little idea factory. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In December of 2022, I had some friends who are both artists who were visiting us. And as we were wont to do, we're talking about art and creativity and all that. And I kept, for years, I've been talking about how I just don't have enough time to do the writing I want to do.
Mm.
And I said that out loud again. And my friend James looked at me and he said, "Don't you?" And I said, "Wait a second. Do I?" And I realized in that moment it was more I wasn't making and taking the time.
Yep.
I had the time.
Yep.
Technically.
It's the rearrangement of the time.
It's the rearrangement of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I set myself a goal of publishing 2 books a year.
Damn.
For the next 10 years from 2022.
Oh my gosh. That's impressive.
And, well, I mean, I didn't commit to a high level of quality. I mean, they're great. Yeah. Please buy them. No.
Please buy Matthew's books.
Yeah. For the first 2 years, I did 2. Last year, I only did 1. It's okay. I'm not going to try and do 3 this year to catch up.
Don't do it.
But the goal at the start of every year is to get 2 books done.
Wow.
And like for me, that's been sort of the saving grace of life of the past couple of years, is that I have these projects that I'm in full control of, relatively speaking, whether or not they succeed. And it's a creative outlet. And this isn't a backhanded way of me saying you should be working on this book. And I don't mean it like that, but like,
no, I'm on a blog year.
I need that outlet. Right?
I'm on a blog year. This is I like to alternate. Like I actually have a different strategy. I feel like the blog years have become really fruitful for me. Like I will dedicate an entire year to actually writing a blog post every single month and like, really writing like a nice long form piece. And I did that 2 years ago. And it was super fruitful. It made it so I knew what I was doing. Like I just felt very like I had a direction. And so I started doing that for 2025. And I'm only on the second month, and the beginning of the second month, no less. And I already see how it's working again. Because my brain thrives on a theme. Like I need to have a theme. And so I feel like because I agree, I need to put my words somewhere. There's perpetually writing many things. I also have a memoir going, which is I don't know if you've gone down that path yet, but that's a hard one. Yeah,
one of the second book is a memoir of sorts. It's I think technically it's called a fictionalized autobiography, something like that.
Oh.
So it's surreal, and
that's fascinating.
Most of the stuff in it did definitely happen, but a lot of it didn't, and it's just a way of like expressing some of the emotional aspects of things rather than the factual aspects of things.
Very interesting. I have like no idea how to write in like memoir style. That's the thing that I've been running into. It's like I only know how to write nonfiction, but nonfiction from a personal experience standpoint. And I don't know how to write anything else, really. I mean, I guess strategy decks, I know how to write those, but neither of those resemble memoir writing. So, I've been considering like getting some kind of a class, or I don't know, joining a writing group or something like that, because I really do want to explore that aspect of writing, because I really enjoy writing like as a activity. I like producing words from my head. I think it's really satisfying.
Well, I'm very much on the side of I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, as long as you're expressing yourself the way you want to. I do think taking a class is never a bad idea, because at the very least you're going to be exposed to a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And it's going to either be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I need, or that's not quite it, but this might work.
Yeah. Also, accountability really works well for me. Like the accountability of having a class is probably what I need.
Yeah.
Put a little fire under my butt. For now, it just, it comes in like 20 or 30-minute spurts. To your point, I haven't like dedicated time towards it, so it doesn't exist. That's kind of what's
Yeah,
happening. Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, it's not like you're not writing,
No,
you know.
no. But the
So
last book that I wrote when I was writing Stuck, I had like a really regimented writing schedule, which was different than the first book that I wrote, which was really free form and took like 18 months to write. Stuck was like I showed up every single morning at the exact same location, which is right here at this little writing desk that's next to my big desk. And I would write for 1 hour or 1,000 words, whichever came first. And it usually was that the 1,000 words came first, but sometimes
yeah,
it would be the hour. And so, yeah, that was it. And I was pandemic parenting at that point. And that was all I could do, but it got done. Like it got done that way.
mm-hmm.
I think things really come together that way. It did become really important to leave myself like direction. So the outline stage became really important, more so than my first book. It's like you couldn't go free form because you only had an hour. So it's like
Right,
you
and then
couldn't
you're going to
take
be
time
like
to think
all
about
over the
where you
place,
are.
and
Yeah, I
yeah,
literally would like at one point, I don't remember if it might have been Stephen King, that he has a book on writing. And I feel like he had this. It was like leaving it in the middle of a sentence or like at the crescendo of an action, like just stop writing because then your brain will be like tricked right back into the flow when you get back there the next day. And that worked really well for me, just to like kind of leave on a high as opposed to like finish a section and then
right,
blinking cursor of death the next morning.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the classic, like in theater or whatever, leave them wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's except you're
Absolutely.
leaving your future self wanting more
Yeah. Yeah.
and wanting to engage, and
Yeah.
that's a great approach.
Yeah. I'm homeschooling my son, and I've actually read about that approach in homeschooling. That's like one of the recommended approaches is like when you're giving a lesson, don't end the lesson like at some logical place, but like end it when there's been some sort of like success or ease with what they're doing, and then
Mm-hmm.
wrap it up because then it's more like motivating the next time that
Mm-hmm.
they go to do the thing because they're sort of like, oh right, yeah, that was fun. That was the thing we remember. It's like that was fun and easy, as opposed to like, oh no, that was when things got hard and we gave up, which that can be the other way if you don't catch it soon enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to balance, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But how is the homeschooling going?
So far, so good. We're early in the journey, so I'll know more much later on, but I think that it's a good choice for us right now. So I'm
Yeah,
happy that we're able to do that for him. Yeah.
yeah. We did it for the middle school years.
Oh, nice. I did it for the high school years myself, so
Oh,
I'm very familiar with the homeschooling, and it's become much more popular since I did it. Like what, 30 years ago? So
yeah. There's a lot of things about Portland that make it pretty easy to do. Well, easier. There's a It's probably still around because it's been a while, but there's a place called Village Home, which is sort of collective unschooling. So
mm-hmm.
like the kids
Yeah.
can go there and take classes from people in the community,
Oh,
kind of
that's
thing,
cool.
and they're not always in home.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing called Trackers in Portland, which is an outdoor school
Oh, nice.
that is designed to give kids
Yeah, like a forest school.
outdoor
That's
exposure
cool.
and experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's yeah, as I guess Sagan would have been, what are they at that age, 11, something like that, 12, I can't remember. But I remember picking them up from Trackers, and we went to the store, and people are like looking at my kid weird, and I looked and I'm like, oh, it's because they have a knife on their belt,
That would be why.
because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're trained to use
Mm-hmm.
knives correctly and safely, and so it's not a big deal, and people get
Oh,
scared by that. So
that's so funny.
but it was pretty wonderful to have like a lot of these different services available to
Yeah.
support,
Yeah. No, we have a
and
lot
just
here in Florida.
please leave the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, here in Florida, we actually have a lot of homeschool enablement resources, which is nice, and the
That's
state is
great.
very supportive of it. Um, so that's nice. It's a plus for the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of things currently taking your time, but also rewarding stuff.
Yeah, it's all mine, you know? Like
Yeah.
I'm not spending any of my brain cycles thinking about somebody's $1 billion business getting another, you know, $1 billion. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not thinking about like convincing somebody to invest in their information architecture strategy. I'm not thinking about whether or not somebody's going to buy my big project that's going to pay the bills for the next however many months. Like I'm not it's just a completely different way of
Hmm.
existing, which is nice. I
Yeah.
needed that. Like, rounding back to burnout recovery. I just my body could not take that anymore. So this is a much slower pace of life, and it's better for me. It's also like there's grief, involved in like the difference between those lives. And
Hmm.
burnout is not my choice. I would have loved to, fly that close to the sun for a little longer, but I just could not do it. My body was like, no, you cannot. So, um, so yeah, there's been a lot of like physical and mental health recovery stuff that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years. That's been really pivotal. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff if I was still giving my time to other people and charging by the
Hmm.
hour. Just, it just couldn't have worked. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about this morning before getting on this call with you, and how I mean, I could definitely argue by choice, but I'm still in this space of working with people on projects to make their businesses better.
Sure.
And and the thing that I often keep getting stuck on is one of the things that has made it harder and harder over the past, it's probably related to the pandemic, but 5 or 6 years, is I feel like I'm finding fewer and fewer people who I don't need to say this politely, who want their businesses to get better, who want
Mm.
to serve their customers better. There seems to be and I'm sure in some respects there are logical, a mix of logical and rationalized reasons for this, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a clinging to the way things are
Yeah.
that I think is pretty typical for a lot of businesses. Like,
Sure.
you know, anytime a company says, "Hey, we're spinning up an innovation initiative," it's like, okay, your senior leadership probably doesn't want innovation because their bonuses are dependent on the current things working.
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you nailed
And
it. That's
so,
that's what it is, though. It's incentives. You know.
right. Yeah. And so I kind of wish I could figure out, because I know they exist. I kind of just wish I
Mm-hmm.
could figure out where these people are. And I think they're probably in the spaces that are more aligned to things we might term nonprofits and things like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Maybe
think
not
that
at
I
some
think that
level, but
that's been like a big question of mine in terms of what I'm creating, especially with the club, is it feels like I could go down the not-for-profit side, like it's a community, and like if I was running a bowling league, it would be a not-for-profit, but
yeah.
running a league of information architects and content designers and strategy folks and researchers. So it's like there's the legal container that you put the business in, and then there's
Mhm.
like what the business actually does. And I feel like it's still a question to me of whether or not a for-profit business can try to do good in the
Yeah.
world. Like I really do question that. I don't know. I mean, I think one of the only ways that I know how to think about it, my business or anybody else's, is where is the money coming from and where is the money going to? And I know that that's like a very simplistic way of looking at it, but like, for example,
Yeah.
If all of the money is coming from venture capitalists and all of the venture capitalists that are involved are backing a whole bunch of other things that are an unsavory palette of humanity, um, yeah, like it doesn't really matter how good your product is. It's paid for by people that are
Yeah.
doing bad things in the world to get the money that they're getting. So it trickles down, you know? So I feel like where the money comes from is super important. And then the same thing is true in terms of like, what do you do with the money? Like when I see a company that's struggling and raising prices on customers, but then they have a really fancy office and they're making everybody
Right.
return to work, I'm like,
Yeah.
huh, that's interesting. That's just an interesting way of
Yeah.
spending your money. So I don't know. Maybe that's like a simplistic way of looking at it, but I just feel like, yeah, the in and outflow of money does show a lot about a company. But it's also something that we don't get a lot of transparency into unless they are a public company. So it kind of, to your point, it kind of leaves small and medium businesses in this space of having to communicate that information. And usually the only way that that's done is through some sort of a virtue signal.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we spent this much on education, or we spent this much on charitable contribution, or we spent this much on scholarships, or whatever it is. Um, but the full flow of like, where does the money come from and where does it go? That is largely unknown. And I think like that creates natural and warranted questions like the one
Yeah.
you're asking.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that that's a overly simplistic way of looking at it. I would say it's a starting point,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are other nuanced things you can get into,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's
Yeah.
a perfectly valid and appropriate place to begin.
I mean, my
Is
next level down is how do they treat
yeah.
the people that work there? That's
Right.
like, because if
Right.
your finances are real clean and everything's good there, but the people that work there feel underserved or used or, uh, heaven forbid, they feel like it's toxic, like those things then become elements as well. But
Yeah.
it's weird. I had the conversation with a friend recently about like, what is our obligation as consumers to do that kind of research into the companies that we then fund with our hard-earned dollars, you know, because like they live in a country where that kind of thing is not discussed. Like it just isn't. This idea that we're like not shopping at certain big box stores because of their removal of some kind of
Right.
support for this and that, like that's just not something that exists outside of the American oligarchy. So yeah, to discuss it even is, it's new, Matthew. It's new. Our
Yeah.
brains haven't had to work like this, but now they do. Yeah, it's like an extra
Yeah.
spreadsheet that got added, right?
Spreadsheets for life.
Yeah. Oh
Spreadsheets for
gosh.
life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that that's like at the beginning of our conversation when I talked about like I have my privilege and I don't want it taken away and I want other people to have it. I think
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about right there is a privilege that I want other people to have,
Mm-hmm.
is the time and space and education and understanding to be able to make those choices.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
because, you know, with the exception of two products, one that we need, one that we like, that only get sold through Amazon, we don't buy from Amazon anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when it does come time to get those two products, we sit down and we're like, are we really doing this?
Were we really doing this? What are we doing here? Doing
Yeah.
it? Pressing the button? Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not weaned off of Amazon yet. It's interesting because as an author, my first book, the rights to my first book are owned by Amazon. Like I
Mm.
technically can't reprint How to Make Sense of Any Mess without Amazon's permission. Um, and I derive income from Amazon. And so
Yeah.
and also people buy my books on Amazon. So it's like I cannot say that I am anti-Amazon while still taking an income from Amazon. I also worked at a company, Etsy, who saw the direct impact on small businesses that Amazon had. I mean, I worked at Etsy during the height of that, and it was really shocking and sad to see
Yeah.
how that happened. And the rollout of that has not stopped. Like, it is still the case that there are small business owners out there whose things are perpetually stolen or pushed down in the algorithms by people that are just taking a different tact and using the technology not in like off ways. They're using them in prescribed ways. They're watching
Yep.
YouTube videos of like how to get your Etsy listing, up. But then there's artisans that don't have that skill set, don't have that time or the energy. And like, who wants to do that? Like, you got a shop because you were making the thing you were making, not because you wanted to be a e-commerce marketer, So so yeah, I think Amazon and the like has changed the world, but it's similar to like Facebook. It's like, can you be a business and not exist on Facebook is something that I hear a lot from folks. And like, I'm a
Right.
business that doesn't exist on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I don't know the impact of that. I have no idea. Maybe we would go gangbusters if we had Facebook. I kind of doubt it at this point. I think we've missed the Facebook boat. Um, but LinkedIn is the place now that I'm kind of like, gosh, I don't like it here. But the return
Yeah.
on investment for posting there seems to be worth it to go there by scheduled post occasionally. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's an in-betweenness to all of this. It feels very in transition. So a lot of sense to be made here, for sure.
Yeah. Good. Good one. Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll be here all week.
All right, I'm going to transition and ask you. It's time for 7 plus or minus 2 questions.
Ooh, okay. That's very nerdy, my friend.
I know.
That
Thank
is.
you. See, I think you're the first person to have actually reacted to that the way I was hoping people would.
Really? Who
Yeah,
are you
because
hanging
I'm
out
always.
with, sir?
Well, I don't think that Miller's quote unquote law is bandied about much anymore.
Oh my gosh. I don't think that you're in the right rooms.
I mean,
I'm
tell me about it, sister. Yeah. I tend not to leave this room, which is probably part of the problem.
Same, but I've got this glass portal to the whole world, so it seems like it's okay.
Oh shit. Honestly, that's like 94% of the reason why I'm doing the show is just so I interact with other humans on a regular basis.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for interacting with me.
Yeah, interacting with humans is my favorite.
Yeah, apparently I'm an extrovert. I didn't know.
Really?
I always say that I'm a classically trained introvert.
Interesting.
But I do think, realistically, as with everything, it's a spectrum. And there are some things that give me energy and some things that don't.
Yeah.
And it's like I went to the event last night and it didn't give me a ton of energy, a little bit.
Wow.
But, talking with you, talking with other people, like I'll notice the rest of my day is like do.
Oh, that's nice.
So
I'm
it's
glad
helpful
to know that. I'm not an extrovert for sure. I'm definitely an introvert. But I like to say that I'm an introvert that plays an extrovert on the internet, because people are often surprised to hear me say that I'm an introvert. But yeah, no, I get a lot out of conversation with people, but I would say that it is energy depleting. Like, I will have to recover from this conversation, but not in a bad way. Not in oh God, I never want to do that again kind of way. More like I like to sit with what's happened. And I like to sit with like the thought. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's not a processing speed thing, but it's related. But yeah, I find myself to like definitely get a lot out of human interaction, obviously. And I really like understanding and working with humans, like me, a human. But I also am like completely exhausted by it almost instantaneously. So it's a big reason that I don't do the conference thing anymore, because I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad I did it for the years that I did, but I didn't understand how it was contributing to my burnout. And that was mainly because I could not plan enough recovery. Like I, for
Yeah.
years, would have this thing that I'd call the conference hangover, where for a week after I get home from a
Yeah.
conference, I would just be a mess. Well, I mean, when I finally stopped going to conferences because of the pandemic, I was going to upwards of 30 events a year. Like that's, you're going to be burnt out.
Wow.
Right. But
Yeah.
if you want to sell books as an independent author,
I get it. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's like building a world where I can make the things I want to make and still talk to the people I want to talk to and reach the audience I want to reach without physically taxing myself to the point of burnout. Yeah, that's like the mess of my life to make sense of, I would say. Yeah.
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 I'm glad you're there. Like mentally, like you're
Yeah.
figuring that out and doing the things to
Yeah.
protect your future self.
Thank you for saying that. It makes me think about the girl that I was like 10 years ago that didn't know. She didn't know she was burning
Yeah.
herself out at all.
Yeah.
She was.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Like
We
I
were
know
just
what's
kids,
happening now.
Matthew. We were just kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. 7 plus or minus 2 time.
Yeah,
And
do.
and you can interpret these however you like.
Okay, I love
There's
it.
there's
Let's
no
do it.
limit.
Okay.
What is one thing you'd change about your profession?
My profession? Like my personal profession or like the field in which my profession is in? You said I could interpret it either way. Shoot.
Whatever you like. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would change. I would make it so the words information architecture did not send red flags in so many people's brains that made them think it was something that was too complex for them to tackle, or that it was a bunch of people that were going to convince them that it was too complex for them to tackle. I think that's what I would change. Yeah.
Okay. What do you wish people cared more about?
People with different experiences than them. Yeah.
Say more about that.
Oh, I mean, I immediately just went to like, I feel like so much of the problems in the world are based on people being unwilling to walk in someone else's shoes, even for a second. And also at the same time, being very comfortable pretending with stories that are made up of their own evidence that they do understand those walks of life. I don't think I need to give any specifics because I could apply that to so many different issues. But that seems to be like a main pattern of like, what's wrong with humans? That we don't appreciate what's different than ourselves. Like it's very hard for us to project into other people's worlds, and all of our decisions about how we believe that the world is based on our experience. So we make decisions from that, and then we inadvertently affect other people. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, which starts off my novel, it's a little plug there, is by Kenneth Burke, and it's a way of seeing is also a way of not seeing.
Yes.
So to your point, it's
Exactly.
like I see the world this way, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people, and I would say every human at points in their life can only see the world the way that they see it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be nice if there were times where there was less stress, less demand, more space to stop for a moment and
Yes.
see the world in a different way?
I had a reflective moment like that yesterday, actually. I was talking to someone who's working on something for the club. And so they're acting in like very much like a consulting way, and with me as the client. And we're discussing two ways to do something. And one way was obviously the strategically sound way, Matthew. One way was obviously the way. And the other way was the way that they put there because it was what I wanted to hear based on what I had originally asked for. It was like classic, just classic consulting move. It was like, you asked for something that is ill-advised, so I will frame it, but then also I will frame what I will do for you that will be better. And we're having this conversation where I'm like, yeah, I know we should do the thing that's better strategically, but I really want to do this other thing this way. And it made me realize that being a business owner over this last year, especially growing the Sensemakers Club, has finally allowed me to step into the experience of being the client that I have struggled to understand and have empathy for my entire consulting career. Because I've worked through those issues and I think that I've done a good job balancing those things, but I've never understood that pull of short-term gain versus long-term investment. I've always been able to describe it theoretically, and I could understand it logically, but it's the emotional part of the empathy that has always been missing. And I did not know that until very recently. And so, yeah, I had this like very go to the balcony moment yesterday when I was talking to this person, and I just stopped him and I was like, I am being that client right now. I've been in your shoes. Like, and I described it as, I feel like I have like two management consultants on my shoulders. And one is like the venture capitalist that's telling me like, grow, grow, grow. You just got to grow, grow, grow. Fix it later, fix it later. And then the other one is like the like creative strategist. And they're like, you have to invest in the long-term health of the brand, go slow, like collect wins, learn from fails. Like, and I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? So I know that's a lot, but it just feels like, yeah, that's such a important thing for us to kind of like understand that we only can see things through our lens right now, but also that we can collect lenses over time, like through our own experience, but also through deeply listening and paying attention to other people. So yeah.
All right. What's the best meal that you've ever had?
Ever? Oh, God. Ever. Okay, I'm going to pick a really silly one because it happened in Portland and I appreciate it very, very much. And I would definitely put this top.
Well, Portland is silly, so.
Oh,
great.
From a food
On
standpoint,
brand.
silly in the best freaking way. But this is a silly, silly story of frivolity from a culinary delight standpoint. Okay. So I had a period of time where I was working for Nike and I was working on this diagram that was the size of an entire room. So there's like a very, very large diagram. And so I had to go there every other week. And I was going there to interview all these subject matter experts. Well, 3 months into me doing this, we had like kind of like a big reveal moment, if you will, where there was like coming together and all these different subject matter experts came together and we had this big meeting and it was just so fun and so awesome. And everybody was like, hurrah, hurrah, hooray. We have this diagram. So of course we all go out to dinner. Okay. So we go out to dinner at this place in downtown Portland. And amongst other things, Portland is very well known to have delicious freaking oysters. So the project manager is ordering table style because this is far too large a party to just like go person to person. Yeah, so he's just making decisions. Sure. So he puts in the order and then everybody realizes as the food is coming that he has ordered oysters. But somehow in a table full of mostly people that live in Portland, no one at the table eats oysters except for me. Matthew, oysters are maybe my favorite food. Like, I can't think of anything that delights me more than having a dozen oysters to myself. It is also incredibly expensive to eat oysters as like a hobby. Yeah. So I had never had more than like probably 12 in like a setting. There was 36 of them.
Oh my gosh.
and the waitress,
for me?
Yes, and the waitress literally she was like, if I take these back to the kitchen, they will go in the trash. Like, no
yeah.
one in the kitchen is going to eat these. They will go in the trash. Please eat them. And I was just like, okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I did. I
Can
ate
do.
all of them. I swear to goodness, I was high on oyster. It was wonderful. It was so good. And the funniest thing about it is, you wouldn't think I'd be hungry for dinner after that. No, I was hungry for dinner after that. And I had rabbit, and it was delicious.
I mean, oysters are an appetizer, so there you go.
And
Right?
36 oysters are also an appetizer.
Yeah.
So at the time of my life that this happened, I was drawing a sketch note calendar. And so there is a square that has 36 oysters drawn in. And it was, yeah, that's my favorite culinary story. Yeah.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question. What do you wish you'd done differently?
That one's so hard. I like where I am. I really believe in the like Back to the Future version of like time travel, where like if you go back and you fuck with one thing, excuse my language, that like everything could be very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't dare go back and change anything. There are lessons that I have learned that I try to like tell other people, mostly about burnout recognition and the impact of perfectionism. Like if I meet somebody in their 20s that describes themselves to me as a perfectionist and I have any opportunity to advise that person, I absolutely fucking will. But yeah, would I go back and change it? That's hard. Yeah, that's hard. I'd be a completely different person. We might not be on this podcast.
Okay, well, don't do it then.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So,
right. There's no wrong answer to any of these questions.
Yeah.
Classic researcher style.
I mean, obviously, if there was like no implication and it didn't change the future, I would go back and not burn out. I would go back and be like, hey, don't do that. The thing you're going to do. Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. While you were explaining that, the thing that like sort of popped in my head was, maybe it's learn the lesson sooner.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah.
Yes. Or like believe it sooner. Because like it was not a shortage of material. It was not a shortage of theoretical knowledge. It was a shortage of belief. And I don't know how much of that is just the naivety of youth. Like everybody thinks that they're invincible when they're young. And the farther away I get from feeling like that, the more easily I recognize it in young people, where it really does seem like the belief is that it does not apply to you or that it will not apply to you. And then it does one day apply to you. And you go, what? How did that happen? Oh, right. And that's why hindsight is a bitch. Because you look back and you go, oh, right. That person tried to tell me, that person tried to tell me, that doctor tried to tell me. It's like very clear story.
Yeah. I think at least in the US, there's also an aspect of I'm supposed to do this.
Oh God.
I'm supposed to do these things that are leading to burnout.
Yes.
Because that's how the system works.
Yes. Yeah. The should storm is very strong here in America. Yeah. Very much.
All right. So if you stopped doing what you're doing now, what would you do for a living?
I stopped doing, so I have to make money. Like I have to figure out a way to make money, but not do it this way.
So I'll give you an extra bit of prompt, but going back to, you can answer it any way you want.
Sure.
I would say there's probably a little bias in this question of exist in a capitalistic structure.
Yes.
But
my answer would be not exist in a capitalistic structure.
Yeah.
That would be my answer. So,
but I think you could also interpret it if you wanted to of, how I'm making a living is how I am existing as a human in a harm reductionist,
Mm,
joy influencing way
right.
could mean you now sew teddy bears and
Yeah.
it could be anything,
Yeah.
however you want to interpret it.
Oh, I think it'd be so fun though if we just did like the if you were going to exploit the capitalist system, how would you make money?
All right, I'm going to change the question for next time.
I think that that's a better, funner question.
So, Abby,
Okay.
speaking of
Yeah,
which,
go ahead.
if you were going to exploit the capitalistic system,
How would you do
how
it?
would you go about it? Yeah.
I think I would definitely invest in becoming a drop shipper. Like I feel like that is
You'd invest in what?
in being a drop shipper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I would go hard on the drop shipping thing just because it's a game that is playable and it is winnable. It's just tedium, and I feel like I could win it. Like if I could get over the tedium and the like just pressing the pedal to the metal of the capitalist system of it, like if I could let go of all that, I just think
Mm-hmm.
I could be adequate at it. Yeah.
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 Sustainably adequate.
Yeah. I feel similarly
Yeah.
to day trading.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to do that. That sounds like hell. But if I needed to exploit the capitalist system, that is a way I could make money from my computer without leaving my house or being like reporting to another person. So
Yeah.
I feel similarly about drop shipping. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I am going to be a drop shipper, Matthew, now that we've had this conversation.
I mean, I just did put up coasters for sale on my site that say there's no such thing as a design emergency. So
Oh my gosh, really?
I'm
I
not
want one of
pushing it
those
hard,
coasters.
obviously,
That
but
sounds fun. Did you just put
yeah,
that in your shop? May I buy one?
I had a
Available?
T-shirt for it and I have some stickers for it, and then somebody on LinkedIn said I need coasters, and I was like, can do, one person driving demand
Yeah, that's
coasters.
awesome.
No
I
such
love
thing
it.
as a design emergency.
I love that. I want one. Okay.
Little product placement there,
Yeah. Put it
unintentional.
in the show notes. Buy
There you go.
Matthew's coasters.
Yeah. All right.
I have coffee
Last.
mugs if you want to put them on your coaster. So we can do a
Oh,
collab.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
All right.
shop
Let's do it.
has coffee mugs. I have two different coffee mugs. One says I make
All right.
sense of messes, and the other one is the Sensemakers Club.
So I'm gonna find a link to that, and I'm gonna connect it to the post that I just made on LinkedIn
Okay.
about the coaster. So
Yeah, I love it.
not that LinkedIn will display it because it's a link that goes off of LinkedIn, and they don't like that. But
It won't, and that's true.
for the 12 people that see it, it'll be gangbusters for both of us. So
They finally caught everybody with the linking comments thing, and they've now decided to hide those comments,
yeah,
which is a particular shade of evil that has
yeah.
been, yeah.
All right. Final 7 plus or minus 2.
Okay.
Imagine it's a year from now.
Okay.
What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
Oh, I hope to be more confident in my choice to remain independent and homeschool my kid. Yeah, those are the two things. Like, I'm very confident in those things, and I feel like I have personally done everything I can do to be responsible and diligent and like do it the right way. But the system that I am operating within is so dramatically broken and being broken as we speak that I can't predict that part of it. And so, yeah, I hope that a year from now, I am less afraid of if my choices will stand in the face of all of the change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to know your
Okay.
answer to that one. What do you hope for in a year? Am I allowed to ask that? Is that not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, these are sort of interviewee questions, but for me, I think it's kind of two lenses on the same thing. But the first comes to mind is being able to manage my anxiety better.
Mm-hmm.
because I do manage it better than I used to.
Sure.
But it really, even setting aside all the shit that's going on the past couple weeks, I feel like it's just been ramping up again, and I'm having a hard time
Yeah.
regulating my reactions to things.
I feel that.
So I would hope a year from now that I'm better at that. And then I think the other aspect is, and I think this is related, is I hope to be, pardon me, I hope to be more comfortable. How do I want to say this? I hope to be more comfortable with the reactions of people around me as I start to demask my autism.
Matthew. I'm like so excited that you said that.
So
I'm
I
on the same
practice.
path.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to unmask my autism, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So
A little bit.
also I feel like I didn't invent this thought. Somebody put it into my brain probably through an algorithm, but I think there's something to the fact that the neurodiverse um, like equation equals more input. Like we just have more input. That like we are more anxious right now. That is just what's happening. And
Yeah.
like I don't know, my therapist just tries to remind me of that in terms of like I'm built in a way that I get more input from everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so glad that you're on that path. Are you late diagnosed as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking. Like the grief that I was mentioning earlier uh, has a lot to do with that, you know? Because, like, I'm really glad to know this missing puzzle piece, but I don't know about you, but like, it made me so sad for past versions of me that didn't know about that, that just thought I
Yeah.
was an asshole, you know? Like, really? I used to
Yeah.
tell people that that I'm an asshole. I'm not an asshole. Just have some very, very specific ways of moving through the world that are not aligned with other people. And that's, yeah. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you're on that path. And also, I'm so sorry that you've, yeah.
I got to practice at the event I went to last night. I took these headphones, and which are excellent noise canceling.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
And it it meant that when I went home afterwards, I wasn't completely deflated.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Just a little bit, but it was
Yeah.
okay.
No, the
So
accommodation thing is so critical. And like for me, I'm really struggling with my own ableism in terms of accepting that I deserve
oh no.
accommodation.
Yeah. Oh my
You
god,
know,
yes.
like because I
Yeah.
can go without headphones. I can, you know, and what my team continues to educate me on is that yes, I can, but the cost is great, and the weight. So it's kind of like a constant math equation of the weight of the shame that I get from my internalized ableism versus the accommodations buying me out of the dysregulation that I will experience without it. Which
Hmm.
one? Which one? And I'm a Libra, Matthew. So
Oh.
on top of everything, I'm just like, ah. So yeah, I'm glad that you wore your headphones. I'm proud of you. It's good.
Yeah, I know people were looking at me like, what the hell? But for the most part, that didn't, I was conscious of it,
Yeah.
but it didn't bother me. And
Yeah.
I said to my friend afterwards, I was like, I'm really proud of myself for not giving in to the peer pressure.
The peer pressure, yeah.
And he said, "There's no peer pressure." And I was like, "There is peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's not
It's internalized,
overt,
but it is real.
but yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is.
So
yeah, I feel like one of the things that has pushed me and helped me is the parenting aspect. Like parenting a child on the spectrum has opened me up to understanding how important those accommodations are, because I'm seeing how important they are before you have the social graces forced onto you. And that is the only thing that's convincing me that I deserve them, is like seeing the difference between him being able to participate in something versus not. Knowing that just for decades, I just pushed myself to participate anyways, mask through it, and then live with the results after, which usually were pretty horrific. So, yeah. Did not expect to go there in the last few minutes of this podcast, Matthew. Did not expect.
You're welcome. And, you know, just as an external reminder, Abby.
Yes.
Your voice is necessary to the world. The impact that you have on other people is necessary to the world. So whatever accommodations needed to continue that, take them.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that, because I'm sitting here going, oh no, this is very scary. I've never said what I just said. I've never said it like on a podcast. Like, I was being interviewed a couple years ago on, it was some event that was interviewing me after a talk, I think. And someone asked me about identifying as neurodivergent, because they had said that at another event I had said something like that, and they were interested. And at that event, I disclosed ADHD, because that's where I was at in my journey. But yeah, this is new information being said about me on the internet. So, hi.
Hey.
Hi. But no, it's weird, because the thing that I'm the most scared of is I feel like I don't deserve that adjective. Like, I have heavy respect for people who are fighting for autistic rights. And I feel like I don't have any right, based on my lack of experience, to enter into that discourse at all. It's just so new, you know? And then there's also the aspect of, like, it's very familial. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way around that. Like, when you're talking about your own neurodivergence, you're talking about your family. And they haven't given consent to that. So there's that aspect as well. Because I can't talk about mine without it being, like, you know, the parenting aspect is a critical part of how I even came upon this information to begin with, you know? So yeah.
Well, I'll leave you with a thought that I'm stealing from somebody else whose name I can't remember. But it was a TEDx talk, and she was talking about coming out as gay. And she had this line that has stuck with me ever since I heard it, and there is no harder, there's just hard. So your difficulties in life are not a competition with other people's difficulties in life. Even though you can respect and understand and have empathy for the fact that some things might be harder for other people, you're not in competition with their difficulties. Your own is your own, and
I've never heard that.
Deserve the space.
Yeah, I've never heard that. And I needed to hear that today, Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, honestly, this is an intervention.
Is this when the sign drops?
Yeah, the sign drops.
Up?
Come on.
Come on, guys. Okay, come on in.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how Matthew publicly pressured me to come out as
That's
autistic on
right.
the internet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Matthew is a bully, and
No,
he deserves to be canceled.
I've had so many conversations where people have been trying to tell me the thing that you just said so beautifully in that quote. Like I've heard people say like, you know, you're not competing in the trauma Olympics.
Yeah.
I've heard people say like, don't compare yourself, like all those things. But there's something about, I mean, words always get me. Like it's always words that
Sure.
finally pierce
Yeah.
me through. But yeah, the idea that there is no harder, there's just hard. Yeah. Mm. Yep. I don't believe in
Okay.
angels, but I do believe in the universe. And you're definitely an arbiter of the universe today. So thank you. I know we booked this call like weeks ago, and somehow
every other
today was the
Wednesday.
day I needed to hear this.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I'm glad I could help.
Yeah. No, you did. This was lovely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's stop talking.
Okay.
Bye. And then you can recover from.
I'm gonna go lay and look at the ceiling now with my little friend.